So let's attempt to remember the beginnings of an action thriller franchise with this theatrical adaptation of a best-selling novel by Richard Ludlum with Matt Damon and the Bourne Identity. Found floating in the Mediterranean Sea with 2 bullets in his back, a young man discovers he has no memory of who he is or how he got there. However, a Zurich bank account number embedded in his hip is all he has to go on to begin to assemble the broken pieces of his identity. A safety deposit box gives him a name in Jason Bourne, along with several other passports with different identities, as well as a handgun which he leaves behind. But someone is alerted to his presence. Meanwhile, at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, Alex Conklin, under the supervision of Deputy Director Ward Abbott, tries to clean up a mess in the aftermath of a failed assassination attempt, an attempt that was to be carried out by their Treadstone operative, Jason Bourne. Conklin's team soon discover Bourne has entered the American embassy in Zurich, and Bourne is quickly singled out and chased by embassy officials. He is able to evade them, which leads him to paint the nomadic Marie Kreutz to drive into a supposed residence in Paris. As their journey stretches along, Jason confides in the innocent-hearted Marie about his amnesia, but more so how he has the skills of a well-trained and dangerous man, which further confounds him. Conklin quickly activates other operatives of the Treadstone program to kill off Bourne, and ultimately tie off the assassination of African dictator Wambosi, who threatened to expose the CIA's shady operations. Jason and Marie fall into repeated danger as police and assassins zero in on them, forcing them to go further deeper underground to mask their whereabouts. However, as Jason uncovers more truths about who he was, the higher the danger becomes, and the more it becomes necessary that he takes the fight directly to those who want them dead. Yet who he was is something he no longer wants any part of, but confronting it may be the only way to find a new identity for himself. So the Bourne Identity first hit bookshelves on its original publication date of February of 1980, and Richard Ludlum had already had such sweeping success over the previous 9 years, publishing such great best-selling novels in the sort of political espionage thriller genre. A lot of them did get film adaptations, stuff like The Holcroft Covenant, The Oscar Weekend, and The Bourne Identity in 1988 got a nice little TV movie starring Richard Chamberlain and Jacqueline Smith that's kind of an okay type of thing that is very close to the novel with only a few minor changes here and there, but kind of a scarce thing to come about these days, and runs about 3 hours long, but you might be able to find it somewhere on YouTube if you just look around a little bit. But yeah, it's just a TV miniseries, and it's kind of what you'd expect. It's not bad, it's kind of okay for what it is at the time it was made, but it doesn't really set the world on fire and doesn't kind of like get much of a reference towards anything today. But just go along through the 90s up until the early 2000s. You've got Doug Liman, who did this fantastic independent hit of Swingers, followed up the fantastically kinetic and humorous film Go, which had the wide selection of those, like, the hottest young talent at the time. It's a phenomenal film that just hasn't gotten a Blu-ray release yet, but it's a great film to check out, and definitely shows so much what Doug Liman can offer as a filmmaker, and just get all the stuff you get, and such clear, concise type of storytelling that he excels at. And after he got those 2 nice hits to himself, he kind of like, I want to do the Bourne Identity. He wanted to adapt that for the feature film screen, and so they bring in the screenwriters of Tony Gilroy and William Blake Heron to adapt the entire thing, because it's about a 600-page novel, and they really want to kind of, one thing updated from the Cold War era it was kind of set and written in and all that type of stuff, and also just kind of focus the story down into something a little bit more just human in a certain way, a little bit more down into the identity of the character of Jason Bourne there, as you would kind of expect there in a certain way, just to explore more of the character, more of the concept, all these different things, where the novel is a little bit more kind of wrapped up in sort of the how everything kind of comes together, all the sort of mechanics of this entire story, and all the stuff with the CIA and all these espionage type of things going on, the whole story and everything. They wanted to focus down as much more of a character-centric type of story here, And Doug Liman, like I said, he's a fantastic director. I think he does such amazing work with stuff like Edge of Tomorrow and all these really fun, energetic, kind of fresh type of things that he does with all these wonderful films that he puts together. Just has this very particular sort of quality what he brings to the screen, that it's very streamlined storytelling. It doesn't complicate the plot. Again, something like Go, where they have all these sort of segmented out sort of different storylines they're kind of following at the same time. You find a way to tell all those stories with all these different characters in a very simple, concise, easy to follow sort of fashion. And he just excels at it so very much. It's like he easily and clearly conveys all the elements of plot, story, and character of this whole thing. Everything is very clearly defined. All the motives and the machinations, all these things going on. They never get convoluted. They never get complicated. Everything's very easy to follow from one beat to the next to see how the film moves organically through the story and how you see all the things building up. It's very easy to follow storytelling. And there's so much shows in the cinematography that him and director of photography Oliver Wood put together for this whole thing, because Oliver Wood had shot like 53 episodes of Miami Vice, then jumped up to feature films with Rennie Harlan on The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, Die Hard 2, and just a whole bunch of other really goddamn good-looking movies. This guy knows how to adapt to the different demands of the director there and move all these different things in such a good way that he just clicked into what Doug Liman wanted here to have. So it's very easy to follow in a visual sense as well. You could definitely tell Doug Liman's quality of fresh energy and enthusiasm, stuff like that, reflected in how the film looks and how it tells its story. In such an interesting type of way, having Matt Damon be the guy to portray Jason Bourne in this film, because even Tony Gilroy, the screenwriter, is like, he didn't quite see it at first, because, you know, we just come off the 90s where we got all these big action stars, kind of like some new ones coming in like a Will Smith and Tom Cruise and whatnot, but then kind of the Stallones and Schwarzeneggers and Van Damme, they're kind of a little bit kind of bowing out of the theatrical scene. They're kind of not getting on the best traction and stuff. So it's kind of a interesting time in the action thriller genre, stuff like that. And finding someone was a good actor to portray this role and then train them to be able to do the action sequences to get them in shape and get them working with the stunt coordinator and the fight choreographer and all that type of stuff. It seemed like a much better way to go with the whole thing. And Matt Damon had already proven himself very much in a lot of different films. Good Will Hunting, Ocean's 11, and Talented Mr. Ripley, all these different things, showing a lot of the depth of his quality as an actor and his diversity as well. And he just does it. He just does such a good job introducing the world to this character on this level here, getting such a very human portrayal of the character. Just like you can just see the confusion, the doubt, the sort of ambiguity about what he's dealing with and how he's trying to figure out who he is, all these different things. It's just very vulnerable in such a way that feels so very natural and feels very much like the audience can connect with this character to understand the sort of haze that he's kind of walking around in and not knowing which way to go and what's leading to what, and trying to understand what's going on here while he's still got this reactionary type of thing to all these kind of deep-seated skills. He kind of just triggers off his brain when he has to defend himself in certain situations. This thing just triggers off, stuff like that. So it's like he's trying to figure out where all this stuff comes from, what he knows this stuff, how he knows this stuff, where he came from. You can just see the gears moving in his head when these weird type of things start clicking into his head in certain places. And just like when he goes to the safety deposit box in Zurich and he finds the passport. So it's like, I found an identity, but then he finds the gun. It's like, that just weirds him out even further. So every time he gets up to a new revelation, new piece of information about who he was, it builds so much more complicated confusion and fearfulness on top of it. It's like the further deeper he goes in the whole thing, the less he actually wants to realize who he actually was, until you get like up to close to that third act of the film where he's talking with Marie right before he goes off to encounter Conklin, stuff like that. I just don't want to know who I was anymore. I want to forget all about this stuff. It's just no, he just doesn't want any part of this stuff. Just like the worse it gets, the less he wants to know. And it's so very well conveyed through Matt Damon's performance here. He's such a very good actor to just convey all the compassion and the sort of weariness of the character, this heartfelt quality that he kind of has of this sort of rebooted personality himself. It's such an interesting way to see how that all kind of starts to piece itself together inside his head and how you see that through the subtlety of his performance here. You see all these different things, how he's so selfless when he's dealing with Maria and giving her every chance possible to walk away from this whole thing. Just like, this whole thing just is such a great performance from him to just show so many complex different facets that he has to process and deal with and convey to the audience and all these different things. Just like, you still get an endearing quality out of the performance when you get up with him and Marie. And all these different things build up and just shows a lot more of this character building up a new personality for himself and rediscovering who he wants to be, not who he was. So all these things kind of build up in such a great way with Matt Damon's performance. It's such a great, honest portrayal with the character that Matt Damon is so absolutely adept at, and just doing all the stuff that's action-oriented, shows off the skill and the sort of decisiveness of the character here, that when he gets into dangerous situations, is very quick to make a decision and move on it and act on things. Just like, I like so much how that kind of conveys the audience to show what the character is doing. You don't have to explain it. You see it through the actions and how the film shows you things. Instead of telling you everything, you can understand what the character is building towards and what his background is, all these different things, where the skills probably come from, and just see how he adapts to that and how he deals with that stuff. I think it's so very well conveyed, and Matt Damon was completely committed here and did a wonderful performance, obviously launching off an entire franchise for what he did here in this film. And Franka Potente, she's wonderful. She had done this really just acclaimed independent film run, and she was very much adapted to doing a lot of action stuff in that, and then coming into this whole thing, just nails it. It's completely nailed it, and such a far departure from what the character is in the novel, where it's not Marie Kreutz, it's Marie St. John, and she's a sort of executive businesswoman, stuff like that, and Bourne kidnaps her in the book and also in the miniseries, and it's a very different type of thing, but I like so much the change they made here, because Marie's so much this nomadic gypsy where she's kind of bargaining for a student visa now, and she's got no place to really call home. She kind of stayed here for a couple weeks and stayed over here for a couple months, and she's kind of all over the map and kind of all off the grid and stuff like that, which is a perfect reflection of Jason Bourne, this guy who doesn't have anything to kind of reflect upon himself and kind of define who he is. So he's off the grid in a certain way. He doesn't know who he is, doesn't know where he's going. And so they're kind of this perfect melding of the entire idea of two people can kind of slip off into the kind of unknown in a certain way, kind of slip off the map and the grid and all these different things that they really wanted to, and live the type of lifestyle. So it's like it works in such a great symbiotic, organic type of fashion here for Jason to kind of latch onto that character and have that type of situation there. And Franka Potente's performance is just so absolutely wonderful in this whole thing. I just love so much that she does have a sweet vulnerability about herself that you especially see when that hitman attacks them in the apartment in Paris and he kind of kills himself, jumps out the window and stuff like that. She's just struck over with his entire, she's just completely in shock in the moment. And she throws up later on and all these different things. Just like these violent, grim type of things. It's not something she's ever been really subjected to and doesn't know how to process. And so it's like you just have all these wonderful little things that you see from the character. Just the sweetness as things go on when they're going off into trying to get the information about John Michael Caine. And they find out that Caine was born in a certain way, but Kane's also dead, and they have a body somewhere, and all these different interesting, complicated type of things. So they send Marie into the hotel to get the information, and supposed to go through all these intricate steps that Bourne's supposed to call her and walk her through the lobby and all these different things. And she just figures, just kind of walk up to this guy who's got this kind of sweet eye to her up the counter and stuff like that, and just kind of say I'm Kane's assistant and have this kind of just use her kind of sweetness and endearing qualities and whatnot to get the information they need. So it's just such a wonderful pairing where Bourne's the guy who can deconstruct the analytical situation, but she can kind of find a bit more the simple sort of human type of way to get through these little situations they have going on, and kind of just bring that heart back into Bourne and kind of bring him away from that stuff. Once it's all cleared out from him, he has something else to go back to, and just loves so much the bond they forge and the entire romantic quality they kind of get into each other, the intimate quality between the two of them. They have such a wonderful chemistry between Damon and Potente. They just work off in such a wonderful, lovely fashion, these situations. She has such a wonderful quality on screen, just it sparkles so much when you see her up at the end of the film there. Beautiful type of stuff. It just like she just shines throughout this entire film. A fantastic star in her own right, and just did a fantastic job with this role all over the place. But then you got Academy Award winner Chris Cooper in this whole film as the character of Conklin. Man, he's good, man. He's really damn good at this really dangerous type of character. Conklin, you can see it, the guy's psychology, how he handles things, what he handles. There's all this dirty work that no one wants to look at, no one wants to deal with, no one wants to acknowledge it happens. He has to pick up all the little pieces and sweep them off in little dark corners somewhere where no one else has to worry about him or know what anything ever happens. So it's like this guy just has all those little dark sort of speckles all over him, all the dark edges to him, and you just see the kind of unstable nature of Conklin a little bit. He's just a little bit too much edge to him, you know. He's just the whole thing where you got the wonderful thing with Brian Cox in this whole thing is Ward Abbott, the guy who has to be the guy that Conklin answers to. He's the one who's got to keep this guy a little bit kind of in line. It's like you gotta get a handle on these situations that are going a little bit off the edge here, where people are going to expose shit that we've been doing and all these random horrible things that we need to keep on a lid here. And so this wonderful scenes between the two of them are fantastic, because Brian Cox is an actor. You had to be on just a magnificent level to be able to stay on top of what he has to offer in a scene, and Chris Cooper does it with absolute ease. These two are such a wonderful, perfect, excellent level together. Work off very subtle things where they're going back and forth, talking about all these machinations going on and all these kind of seedy things that really shouldn't be talked about and really should have been dealt with already. I like all this stuff, and just like how Conklin, as things go on, things get a little bit more out of control, and he's got to keep shuffling the shit around and kind of keeping things up on tight, and things are going further off the edge. I like to see just how Chris Cooper just keeps dealing with that thing, and it keeps kind of bubbling up in a certain way, and he has to keep simmering it down a little bit here. It's like the entire thing is going on with the whole thing, just as it builds up, the closer that Bourne gets to him, the more it kind of rattles him and all these different things. And when you finally get the confrontation between Bourne and Conklin at the end, just the whole Spitfire and all this type of stuff, how he's just shouting orders at him and telling him how it was Bourne's idea to do this type of stuff, and how he pays him to disappear, and how he's meant them not to exist, and all these different things, how he sends him to do these jobs where it could be anyone else could have done the whole thing, where it doesn't point back to them. All these different things, just like it just tells the story so very well of how dark this character Bourne was before this entire incident. There's like all these different things, just how Conklin is this sort of dark, sort of madman in a certain way, to kind of mold this type of person into the way he is, and kind of be the man behind him, and all these different things. Just like, it's a great goddamn foil in this whole thing. Just like, he's a great damn actor, and he just put together a really solid performance here to really put together a character that just shows all the parts are kind of falling apart, and just everything just kind of disintegrating at the core of this entire situation here. Just like, I like the entire arc of that entire character here. It does a wonderful goddamn job with it. You got great things with like Julia Stiles getting this whole thing. It's the character of Nikki. Clive Owen early on, before he got some really big roles with Children of Men, Sin City, and all these other things. Getting up as the professor, the hitman and whatnot, who goes up as the guy taking out Wombosi and going after Bourne at the end of the film, and getting that wonderful line of, "Look what they make you give." Which is just something I absolutely love, comes back at the end of the Bourne trilogy here, at the end of Ultimatum. Great type of thing there, but it's great seeing Clive Owen just in this character in a certain way, because you see it's kind of almost kind of a rugged, ragged type of nature to him. He doesn't seem like he's your typical sort of assassin type of thing. He's not like this slick type of guy or whatnot. He's very sort of just regular old trench coat, stuff like that. He just seems a little rough in a certain way. You definitely see that later on when he's talking to Bourne at the end of the thing, with talking about the headaches and all these different things about the physiological toll the whole thing takes on him. So it's like you just see all this type of stuff where these guys suffer so much, and all this stuff that they get put through because of guys like Conklin and putting all the pills and all this type of stuff. The entire Treadstone program has just completely screwed these guys up beyond repair in such a way. But it's kind of interesting watching it this time, Bourne Identity, seeing Walton Goggins as one of the guys in Conklin's little sort of team of guys there working the computers and everything like that. That's a really early role for him, well before he got the major acclaim on Justified and working with some Tarantino films and stuff like that. Guy's a magnificently powerhouse actor, and it's like nice little small role for him early on. So it's like all these little things, like look back on this, like, yeah, they really had a good selection of talent and a really good eye for talent to put together a lot of good stuff in this whole film. The cast in this film is excellent. Like I said, everything thoroughly, top to bottom, inside and out, everything is just excellent. Love this whole cast. But something else that's very excellent with the Bourne Identity here is how the action is all choreographed, shot, and edited, because Doug Liman's so much that guy who just likes to have that clear, concise type of action in his films. And just like, it just flows so very well. Just like getting Matt Damon in training and getting him up in the speed to do all this type of stuff in the whole film with a great stunt coordinator and choreographer, stuff like that. Worked out so extremely well. And it's like how he uses the frame to kind of shoot this type of stuff, where they got the nice wide shots with the cinemascope frame to get all the hand-to-hand combat action worked out in such a smooth fashion, and great selection of shots to use from different angles and stuff like that, where they kind of just move everything along in such an easy to follow fashion. It just works off in such a fluid way to kind of move the story through the motions of the physicality and different things in the sequence. Just like how they use it, even when they're getting out of the embassy and Bourne's kind of moving through things. He's going up the stairwell, he grabs the map off the wall and starts moving around, and he's got the earpiece and stuff like that. It's like, it's very economical way of putting together these moments. You just see all the things very clearly dictated to the audience, how everything just moves forward. It's just the geography of how everything moves forward, and how the motions and the beats of the sequence and the action and the drama and all the different narrative elements move forward into the sequence, moves forward in such a beautiful type of way. And the goddamn car chase really took a lot of people by surprise at the time, because it's just this beaten down little freaking car or whatnot, this little mini coupe getting wrecked around freaking Paris and everything like that. Just like, it's just fucking beautiful. It's fucking phenomenal. It's just absolutely wonderful. They're just charging down the alleyway and then just go down the stairs and everything like that. They're crashing here and there, just like, it's just wonderful. And the use of Paul Oakenfold's Ready, Steady, Go was an inspired choice to get into the whole thing, to give it that energy in the whole thing, just a jolt of this sort of techno-electronic type of thing going on. The whole thing, just like, it just gave the entire thing this entire different energy and all these different things. It's a fantastic sequence. It's absolutely fantastic. Just seeing every time you get a really good and sort of innovative new car chase sequence in a film, this kind of opens a lot of people's eyes. Every time you see, like, go back to like French Connection, or go to something like Ronin, or just Bourne Identity here, or go off something like Jack Reacher, or some other things we've seen lately. Just like a lot of good things just open your eyes, just like seeing a practical car chase done extremely goddamn well. Blows my mind every time. Just like when I first saw like Lethal Weapon 4, that entire goddamn sequence blew the fucking shit off the roof for me, because it was just amazing. But this one, Bourne Identity, which is absolutely wonderful, and they kept building on top of it as this franchise went on. Fantastic type of stuff, but Doug Liman set a template here and a foundation for the action on such a rock solid type of thing here. I cannot ask for a better way of putting together the action in this film that just tells the story so very economically, and very much on the way to tell the audience exactly what the stakes are, know what the goals are, and what you're going after, and when the whole thing has reached a climax and the dramatic tension of the entire sequence, he does everything perfectly. And just all the stunt work they put on later on in the film, where you get that final sort of shootout in the stairwell, whatnot. All these different things are just wonderfully put together. Just like a fantastic stunt team they put together for this whole film. Doug Liman's cinematographer, everything on his team, put all this stuff together in such a magnificent type of way. Just like, it's wonderful how this film just took all that stuff and just really made a fantastic looking and moving action film with a really solid, fantastic story at the core of it, and a really damn good score from John Powell here, because adding in the licensed music from Paul Oakenfold, the entire score kind of complements it. So it's got a little bit of an electronic beat here, stuff like that. It's got a little bit electronic with a little bit of a symphonic type of stuff going on with the orchestra here and there. So it's like it's got a really kind of cool sort of little pulsating beat with the theme of the whole thing, and just have a little good qualities about the sense of the mystery going on and the ominous kind of introspective type of things going on the whole film. Just like he hits all the real subtle beats very, very well, and just gets all the good things when they have to get a little bit heavier in the entire film. It really just kind of nails all the really great things. It's just like he kept coming around for this franchise over and over again and still delivering really good stuff. He's a really damn good composer. Puts together really very much identity for this franchise. When you hear the music from this film and all the other films in the franchise, you can really definitely identify it as the Bourne franchise, and does a really damn good job because of that. But the Bourne Identity is just a really damn good film. If you guys have not watched it in a long time, definitely go back and watch it, because again, as I'll go on, I'll definitely be covering at least Supremacy, Ultimatum down the line. And there's definitely been things said in retrospective about like the Paul Greengrass style with the shaky cam, stuff like that, and how that kind of had an adverse effect on action cinema and stuff like that. Go back to Doug Liman's original film. It really does have a great amount of things to really kind of offer in that type of way as a good, solid, smooth type of action movie. Really comes together in such a great way, because I love so much of the emotional qualities of the whole film. I love so much the intimate storyline between Bourne and Marie there. They just have a really good chemistry, so much they have that sweetness. I just love so much at the end of the film, just that ending is so rewarding to the audience, to see that Bourne went wherever she went, he found her. He promised her that he'd find her. He found her at this little sort of seaside scooter place, stuff like that, and it's such a beautiful, wonderful, bright ending. I just love it so much. And the fantastic Moby track, Extreme Ways, was a brilliant get. It's a brilliant get for this whole franchise. I can't talk more about it. Just like, it's a fantastic, wonderful piece of wit to add the entire grace notes of this franchise onto. So it's like, Doug Liman put together a really solid piece of work there. They did all this stuff to adapt the screenplay from the novel in a way to kind of hone in on the most interesting aspects about what they want to do with the characters and the sort of more human elements they want to kind of delve into as character-centric elements to move forward on a much more relatable type of story, to get more into the emotion of certain things and the psychology of certain things, instead of a little less of the political machinations, get a little more into the machinations of the mind, stuff like that, and how it affects a guy like Bourne to kind of deal with these situations and try to find a new identity for himself and push away what he was before, is a really good type of thing. Just like overall, it's a solid goddamn movie and really deserves a lot more reappraisal, I think. I think it's a little bit more a little bit more of an uptick, I think, in the pantheon of things. Just like needs a little bit more to it. So, guys, your thoughts below about the Bourne Identity. I definitely like to hear about it, but all that type of stuff. So, guys, thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.